Oh,
Okay, and welcome to Game Huggers. We're here today with Josh.
hi everybody. Welcome back to the Game Hump. It's your Wednesday night addiction. Your midweek addiction is back on Wednesday nights, and it's going to be a fun time tonight. We're doing toasts to Turbo Titans of Legend.
Unfortunately, my toaster isn't working, but we've got some excellent guests with us today. First off is our good friend 780 Racer. Say hi, 780.
Hello.
Then we have not just any geek, but Tweak the Geek. Tweak, say hi.
How's it going, everybody?
Finally, or not finally, we have Esteban. Esteban, you want to say hi?
Hey, how you doing? I think I'm almost set up.
Looks like you are. And King Drool, we've got him here.
There we go.
Say hi.
Is the volume good?
Volume's good for you. I don't think we can hear King Drool. He's pantomiming right now.
Yeah, I can't believe it. What happened to his audio? You had to have hit mute or something. Maybe you have like a cord thing on your side that's like hit mute. Maybe you turned it down.
Or it could be a headset problem.
Or it could be just a cranium problem. I'm looking at him there. He looks confused.
It does. Insane in the membrane. And we've got Josh. Say hi, Josh.
I already said hi. Hi.
Did you?
Yeah, well, that's okay. It's fine. It's great. It's awesome because I'm supposed to be the host, you big jerk.
Hey, yeah, so if you're hosting, you should get it twice, right?
Yeah, sure. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Game Huggers podcast this week. We got a plethora of things to chat about, and our awesome panel. I can't believe we have so many people on this week. We got 6 really, really nerdy people that sit and talk about all things Dragon Quest, including
Dragon Quest.
Dragon Quest. Scoff Dragon Quest. No, but honestly, the new Dragon Quest. Wow, holy jeebus! The new Dragon Quest game just came out, and it's got everybody talking, so we should talk about it too. But in addition to that, I want to talk about some stuff in general on the 16-bit era. We're going to talk about Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, TurboGrafx, maybe share a little bit of stories about how we all got into those game systems or what we think of those game systems, and then any recent pickups and things like that too. So why don't we just go ahead and kick off with that? John, can we hear you yet?
I think this is performance art. He's not going to move.
What's really funny though is legit right before we started, his mic was working just fine, and then I hit go, and then all of a sudden now he can't make any noise. Did Christina like knock a wire out or something?
Yeah, he's in the box. So what he could do is he could start taking like pieces of paper and write messages and then put them up to the camera.
I like it. There you go. Now he's like frozen. Oh my God.
That's my least favorite Disney movie, so that's not good.
Nullity's BFF. Duofile.com. Hold on. Keep it there. Hold on. I think I can. There you go.
Well, I can tell the professionalism of Duofile merchandise has gone up.
Oh
I never got anything. I was an early Duophile supporter, and I never got a damn shirt, hat, anything.
That's sad, man.
Dude, I was over there, and I couldn't get the. I hate it. Yeah, but then they want you to buy the T-shirt. I don't want to buy the T-shirt. I want to get the T-shirt and feel special because you gave me the T-shirt.
I got a T-shirt. Oh, I'm pretty. Whoa, what's up with the phone? There's my shirt, Duophile. Yeah, it's pretty spectacular. I can't believe we're doing this much promotion for Duophile.
Absolutely. So let's move on to recent pickups. First off, we'll start with Tweak. Tweak, have you picked anything interesting up recently?
Honestly, I've been on kind of a game hiatus lately as far as it comes to picking up stuff. So I really have not. I've just been going back and playing just other stuff that I've been meaning to get to or things like that.
So it's been a high and low, or a low atus as far as the number of games you've been picking up lately.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, low is as in 0 low, so it's non-existent.
We are banning the term
song, either way.
Banning the term loatus. It'll never be used again.
All right. Next off, let's go with 780. Have you picked up anything recently? Diseases, games, movies?
Yeah, so I've picked up Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 for Laserdisc recently.
Do you have the red Laserdisc of Evil Dead 2? The blood red? Oh.
I have the normal pleat version. And then I also picked up for any PCFX fans, the Pia Carrot DX2 full-length feature movie. That's been about all my pickups I've gotten lately.
Exciting and classy. Next off, let's go with John. John, can we hear you this time?
No, we can't hear
No,
him.
we can't hear you.
Oh, wait.
But he's got something.
What is that? Is that
428.
Gilmore Girls? That's Gilmore Girls.
Gilmore Girls.
So as we scroll in, it says something about Duophile?
It's Gilmore Girls 428.
Yeah, what
Shibata.
is that? It's PS4, huh?
PS4 stuff. I don't know. Oh, that's Shenmue 1 and 2. Very nice.
Shenmue 1 and 2.
Double-sided poster inside as well. Oh, and that is Yakuza. Which one? 0? Q 2. Yakuza 2.
Mhm.
All right. Awesome. I can't believe his audio doesn't work. That's so sad. But we're so happy we're able to do our commentary during that. We'll just have to do our a toast to. Hey, why don't you drive over to 780s?
That's a.
Then you'd have audio.
Yeah, just come over here, bud. You can come sit right next to me. I got a spot for you. You can just come right here.
Sad times. What is that? What is that poster? That picture behind you? What is that? The mountainous thing? What is that? Yeah, no, yeah, that one. What is that? It looks like Final Fantasy. Or am I
You
crazy?
should move his camera. Oh, he's
Yeah.
gonna bring. He's gonna
It's
bring.
gonna bring it to you.
Over.
That's
Bring it over.
perfect.
What is that?
So it is
Oh,
Vindicator. It looks like an old
vinyl cast. Vinyl.
cast.
Oh,
What
neat.
is Final Cast, huh?
What is that guy doing to that poor man on the stick? Is he?
Oh, please
Tell
don't
him
do that to him.
Steve Daves. Vinyl. Oh, okay. Interesting. That was really neat.
All right.
I didn't sign up for any detective work. This is like very intense.
All right. Esteban, have you picked up anything recently?
Yeah. So surprisingly, my brother was recently back and he moved to Missouri a year ago. He came back and realized that there were a few random things he was going to try to sell them or give them away, and it was Renegade for NES and DuckTales for NES. And I was like, "You're going to give them to me." So I was happy to acquire those. And then I also picked up, what is it, the SNES Mini and the NES Mini. Don't shame me. I realized that the only way my twins are 7 years old, the only way I really trust them playing something without breaking my console is to let them play on the main TV, have HDMI hookups, and then I don't have to worry about them breaking my consoles. So they were playing it just tonight, and I walked away for like an hour or two. I didn't even worry about whether they broke it or not. Like, so it made me feel fantastic because up until now, I've been letting them play the original consoles and kind of stressed out because all they have to do is get frustrated and they yank it and it falls off. That's happened a few times. Luckily, nothing permanently broken.
Yeah,
So-
but dude, they made that old stuff out of like Nintendium. You couldn't break it.
It was insanely like the NES is like cracked and broken in several spots. It works perfectly.
Yeah, I've seen NES toasters where, you know, outside of the pin connector, those things have been dropped, broken. You can see
Absolutely.
the insides of them, and they still friggin' work.
Yeah,
So,
no, absolutely. Yeah.
good
And
stuff
that's-
there.
Trying to think as far as other games, not recently. All that stuff I just got in the last like week, but sadly, this is gonna date it. I got a bunch of games like 7 months ago, but I haven't even. It was like PC Engine stuff, and I haven't played them yet. So I have to get back on track there.
Get back
This
to
just-
where you once belonged.
This
Yeah.
just shatters my image of Esteban as this guy who sits around playing PC Engine games like 24/7.
I was until 7 months ago. So
All right, finally, Josh, have you picked up anything recently?
Oh, I did get a couple things actually at LinkCon and then at VGS. So LinkCon, I wound up getting a TurboGrafx arcade stick, so the 2-button arcade stick.
Oh, so just
for
the standard turbo stick, or is this one of the AceMore sticks?
Sorry, the Turbo Stick. Yes, the standard NEC one. I got that from the Ultimate Arcade Workshop guy, who was a vendor at LinkCon, and then I also got something sent to me from actually it was back from MGC. Sarumaru had bought himself the Manhole for PC Engine, and he didn't like it. But I wound up
It's
playing.
fun. Did he?
I know
play
it
through
is.
If anybody likes manholes, it's Sarumaru.
Yeah, that's
So
really
anyway.
surprising to have him give that a bad review.
So I spent maybe an hour or two playing
Hey.
at MG. Can we hear you?
Hey.
Oh,
Fantastic.
right, he's back.
I'm in.
He's got audio.
Oh, thank goodness. I was so worried. So
So who has Manhole now? You have Manhole.
I do. He sent it to me, and I've been playing it. It's really fun. I actually played it at a really small game show in town called WasabiCon. It was mostly an anime-inspired game show, but I wound up setting up a couple PC Engine systems, and so I just had Manhole playing, and I sat and played it by myself while I think there was 60 people that came through the convention during the day, and it was very, very, very low key, but it was fun. It was neat. I got to sit and play that by myself for a while. But otherwise, in addition to those, and I know Dan just loves it when I bring up board games, I got a couple games from both 2DCon and from LinkCon, because we had some really great vendors for board games and stuff there. Bought myself my own copy of Pandemic, which I've never had before, but now I do. Is this backwards to you guys?
No,
it's
that works.
looking right.
It looks good.
Oh, it must be just my reflection or whatever. But yeah, this is an awesome board game. Basically about stopping disease riding through the planet and trying to save the planet. It's super good. And then Suro, which I got from I have no idea what this game is about, but I know the reviews are really good for it, so I'm really stoked.
That game. That's a good one.
You do? Is it
I
good?
do. It's very good.
It's awesome. Cool. We'll have to play it next time you're up, which is in a couple weeks, right?
You got it.
And then what I just got from LinkCon, one of the last things we did on Sunday, because Sunday was a pretty chill day, is I bought myself a copy of Codenames XXL, which is like the original Codenames game, but the cards are gigantic. So it's really cool to play on a big table with a whole shitload of players. It's pretty fun.
It's also an excellent shirt size.
XXL, yeah. Excellent stuff. So yeah, new games, new board games, things to play. And then also, in addition to all of this, for the first time ever, this is a little off topic, but for the first time ever, I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition this Saturday. Yeah.
Right on.
Oh, I'll get you that link there, Racer Man. But that's what I got picked up. Connor, did you do your pickups?
Yeah, I did. I told them that I actually hadn't gotten anything except I recently got a cat, and I don't think that really counts as a pickup. But
Aw.
I would. I'd bring him on here, but he's kind of camera shy.
Okay. Is it a kitten or was it a
No,
it's
he's 1 year old. A friend of mine was moving, and they had to give him up, and I didn't want him to, get left behind. So.
Oh
Is
man,
that
that's
Japanese N64 Mario behind your head? Mario Kart?
Mario Kart, yeah, it's the one that
Yeah,
comes
with
with
the box,
control-
with the controller,
the
yeah.
controller. Yep. Let's see if I can duck down
Yep.
there.
I recognize the box.
Dan likes the boxes.
I
He's
have that
all about
downstairs.
those boxes.
All right,
Oh,
so
wait. I hate to do this. I just remembered something. My mom found an old TurboGrafx pamphlet catalog, and I was delighted. And she could have so easily thrown it out because that's what she's been doing for 30 years, but she saved it for me. So I was really happy. So
that's awesome.
Stevie,
Anyway.
you want one of these for Christmas?
yeah, seriously.
30-year-old.
It's like my mom. It's touched me more than anything else. I was like, oh my god, you didn't throw this out.
Well, that's way better than it being a priest.
Well, there you go.
Damn.
So, as far as pickups go, I've got a couple of things. Last week, we obviously went over Dragon Quest, but there was a couple of sales going on, and I picked up a few anime DVDs. And this is the first one here, and they are related to one another. I don't know how well that's showing. That is Space Adventure Cobra.
Oh my god, that's awesome.
I want to watch that.
Yeah, I know.
And this is the second volume of it.
Are they both interactive?
No, they're not interactive. They're the anime TV show from the early 1980s, which has an excellent disco soundtrack opening theme about Cobra.
Cobra.
Cobra. Seeing you blue. But it's actually a pretty cool show if you like watching old 80s anime. And yes, that is the theme song. So I do as well. And it's done by TMS, so it's very similar to the late 70s, early 80s Lupin the Third show. I think it's mostly the same staff. You have Yuji Ono disco music, like the old 70s Lupin the Third show. So it's very similar to that, but it's a lot of fun. And people who are a big fan of Space Adventure Cobra for Sega CD or the PC Engine versions of it might like this franchise. There's also a Space Adventure Cobra movie, which you can even buy on Blu-ray, but the TV show takes basically the movie and then some additional stuff that was adapted from the manga and goes into a lengthy, fun, exciting, action-packed science fiction babe hunting TV show. So it's a lot of fun, and I've actually seen the show before on like Hulu back in the day, but the Blu-rays were $15 each, or not the Blu-rays, the DVDs were $15 each on Crunchyroll as they're being discontinued, and I figured they'd be worth picking up.
Have we really made it to the point where Hulu is considered back in the day, though?
Well, you know what? They've lost so much content that kind of yes. Kind of like with Netflix, there were a lot of things that are on Hulu and were on Netflix that are no longer there, as intellectual property rights holders have started licensing their stuff to all sorts of other weird services. The amount of content on Hulu and Netflix has dropped considerably over the years. And you can almost reminisce about back in the day, Netflix had 4 times as many movies.
Well, back in the day, we used to have... back in the day. Are you sneezing or are you coughing? I don't even know. Gazoon tight. Are you okay?
Can somebody tell Dan about the mute function?
Dan, your shirt is ripped. I think you actually
Helen
ripped your
Keller
shirt
did,
with that sneeze.
Dude, I honestly thought he was doing that as part of his old man impression.
So
my, oh my, awake the neighbors. But no, we were not doing that as part of the old man impression.
I don't have I have no idea what's happening right now. So,
can I request Josh? Can I request a do-over on my pickups?
Yeah, absolutely, sir.
Yes.
We should definitely need.
All right.
Or a
This
duo
was-
file over.
Wow.
Oh, this one seemed to be a mystery for you guys.
Yeah.
This is a game called 420H Shibuya Scramble.
What genre is
And,
that? Is that
it's like an FMV game almost. It's like
really?
it's like a graphic adventure kind of thing. I think maybe, man, I'm telling you, bless you. Think like Danganronpa or whatever it is. It's a game like that, right?
right?
So anyway, that's a pickup. Shenmue 1 and 2. We already talked about it. Yakuza Kiwami 2.
So what is that? What is that now? Okay, so the Yakuza series is like 5 games, right? And then there's the 0.
Well, I guess 7 if you count 0. Yeah. This is
Oh boy.
And there goes his audio.
The Kiwami, which was remake. Kidding me? You absolutely
No,
shitting me.
it's okay. You're okay. Just say it again. Just say whatever you just said.
All right. I said Yakuza Kiwami was a remake of 1. Yakuza Kiwami 2 is then a remake of 2.
Okay. Interesting.
And I got my Yakuza whiskey glass.
Oh
So.
shit! Are we doing this then? Is this
Let's
the
do it.
moment? Is this the moment we've been waiting for?
Sure.
This is a diet soda moment, right? There we
Yes,
go.
it is. Oh,
Yeah,
is that tab?
Yes,
Is that tab? My God.
it is indeed.
We going for the to the Turbo Titan of Legend?
The
Yeah.
Turbo
Turbo
Titan
Titan.
of Legend.
Legend.
And
Yeah.
and then one last thing before I let you move on with your own show, Josh.
Is Josh the host?
I don't know.
Whoever
Who's the host? I have no idea.
So I was told that duophile shirts were a requirement. I didn't own one, so I made one, and I showed it off before, but I want to show it off again. Right there.
Oh, what? Oh,
Yeah,
there we go.
right. And I had the correction right there.
Yes.
So
Wow.
there, I made that just for you guys tonight.
Nailed it.
Seed.
All right, there you go.
It's amazing.
I'm done.
I love it. Very cool. All right. So now that we've talked about that, why don't we just go down the line here and talk a little bit quickly about what was the very first 16-bit era console that you guys wound up getting? And I can start with myself because what the hell? I actually wound up being a very anti-Sega guy for a majority of my years until like the Saturn came around and just completely hooked me with a lot of their like 2D games and RPGs and stuff. But my very first 16-bit system ever was when I actually saved up money and sold off my NES to get a Super NES. That was in like 1992. And I was like pro Nintendo until like my very first job of summer of '94, where I wound up saving up money and got myself a Turbo Duo, and that came out of nowhere because it was actually like there's a good story to that, and I don't know if I've already told it on this podcast before, but when I got my Duo, it was like this mind-blowing, like life-altering moment. It was just one of the greatest things ever. But yeah, so Super Nintendo was my very first ever 16-bit console. What about you, Esteban?
Right. So friends in high school were lusting for, they were Sega Master System fans, so they were lusting for Genesis. And one guy had it like immediately. As soon as it was released, I went over there and I died. I was like, this is amazing. So I thought I wanted Genesis. But then there were some commercials on TV in the New York City area, and for TurboGrafx 16, and they showed for just a millisecond a whole bunch of games. And so my brothers and I recorded it, and we like paused it, or we played it in slow motion. And of course, like there's blazing lasers on there, and I think that is the game I wanted so badly. And so I got TurboGrafx 16 because it did seem amazing. And then later I went to like, you know, Toys R Us, or there was actually a local mom and pop store that had a demo for not all the systems, but most of the systems. And so that's what I wanted. And but my brothers and I had to save up all our birthday money, Christmas money, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the only way we could get that system.
All of your Soviet rubles.
Yeah. But I'll be honest, I thought the Genesis was amazing, and I was worried about, like, I was like, is this a bad decision? Am I going to waste my own money, my brother's money, on a system that's, you know, not as good as the Genesis? So it was stressful. First world problems right there.
But of course, you were very pleasantly happy with the TurboGrafx for the entire longevity of its entire gaming life.
Yes, sadly, yeah, it permanently, you know, like permanently altered who I am. I don't know if that's a good thing. That's kind of scary. But if I had a Super Nintendo or a Genesis, would I be the same person? No, I would not. There's something about rooting for the underdog, for the sad, pathetic little system that got no support. When you went to a magazine at the store and you're hoping for one review. If there was only one review in there, it would be amazing. Like that's how it was every time. So
you just read that one page over and over again.
Yeah,
wow, Beyond Shadowgate looks beautiful.
Falcon looks amazing.
Yeah. So this was at launch, I should mention. So this is all at launch. So it was the autumn.
That's so cool.
You know, I don't even think I wasn't actually able easily to go to some of the stores. So it's possible we could have gotten the console sooner, but we had to wait till after Christmas, literally like 2 days after, before we had enough money. So anyway,
that's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Connor, how about you, sir?
My first one was actually, I was late to the 16-bit game because, you know, I had the parents that were, well, we already have the NES, so why do we need the Super NES kind of thing? And that was a tough sell for me. So I finally got there around 1994, 1995 Christmas time.
Damn.
In that area. Yeah, it was a real uphill battle to get that. But I remember we got that and Donkey Kong Country 2, which is still probably one of my favorite games of all time.
Great game.
And I mean, I got that game memorized even today, but it was, you know, I feel the same way as Esteban did. Like, I don't know if I would be the same person, which would probably be a better thing, honestly. But
I agree. It would probably be better than
it's like, I think it would be a lot better, but I would be a totally different person without that moment.
Hey, so listen, my twins for the first time played the original Donkey Kong Country, whatever. What's it called? Whatever.
Yeah, just Donkey Kong
Country. They freaking loved it. And I was like, and I've been very critical of that game because I played it a billion times. But seeing it through their eyes, I was like, you know what? This is like a great game. So it's kind of neat. I've kind of softened a little bit, maybe, my critique of that game.
It's really weird because those pre-rendered backgrounds actually did age pretty well compared to stuff like that early 3D, which aged like crap.
Yeah,
oh, I know, right?
Yeah.
A 780s racer, Ryan. What was your very first 16-bit console, sir?
Yeah, so my first 16-bit console was a Super Nintendo. I was really late to the party.
Well,
getting
you're
to 16. But
why don't you just tell us how
Are
old
you were like,
you're
yeah.
22 years old.
yeah,
And you could try if you want to.
You're 19.
yeah. So I'm 28. So until I was probably like 9 or 10, all I had was an NES. But I used to go over to my friends' houses that had Sega Genesises and Super NESs, and I definitely preferred the Super Nintendo. Ever since I was a kid, I've kind of thought that a lot of the Sega Genesis stuff kind of sounds like a rubber band as far as like the audio. So for me personally, the Super Nintendo definitely holds a good place in my heart because I grew up with a childhood playing that quite a bit. But TurboGrafx is obviously the best. So
Obviously.
Yep.
How about you, Dan? Dragon Master Dan.
The first system that I had that was part of the 16-bit era was the TurboGrafx 16, and I picked that up because I had friends that got it the previous Christmas. I got it Christmas 1990. They got it Christmas 1989, and I knew people that had games that we could potentially trade with and play and link up stuff, and I knew the library very well, and that was why I picked it up. About 6 months later, I got the Sega Genesis, and I got Altered Beast and Michael Jackson Moonwalker initially, and then a few months later,
that's a life of luxury there. That is awesome. I would have loved that.
Well, and then that Christmas, I got the Super NES. So within a year, I had 3 of the 4 16-bit systems. Now, I don't know if John is going to break our streak here, but did anyone here have a CDI or Neo Geo while they were super actively on the market? Like, I got a Neo Geo in
of course not.
1996.
No. There was one kid in our town. There was one kid in our town that had the Neo Geo, and that was like legend. It was like, did you hear about this guy? He had the Neo Geo, and everybody, was like, oh, I got to make friends with that guy. But he was the only guy.
He had a game because the games cost a fortune.
We had one store that sold them. Like you couldn't even find them anywhere except for one store that you went to, and I don't know anybody that actually owned one at the time.
I didn't know anyone who owned one until they were far less expensive and common, at least the Neo Geo. But Babbage's, Electronic Boutique, even my local Toys R Us carried the systems and a small smattering of games.
That's crazy. So I really only saw it in JCPenney. I've shared this before. So JCPenney had Neo Geo, and they would, every like month or two, they'd change the game on demo. And my brothers and I, and it wasn't a very popular area to go to, the electronics section at this JCPenney. And we just played for hours and hours. It's the best thing in the world. But yeah, it would be interesting to find out the history. Like, how did SNK position the Neo Geo? What executive at JCPenney said, yes, it's a ridiculously expensive system. That's what we need to have. But I'm grateful for it because my summers would have been incredibly boring. For free to be playing this stuff was amazing.
Right? I never saw a store demo of the actual console itself, but again, if you went into like a Babbage's, they would have the box up, and then maybe a half a dozen games you could potentially buy. Toys R Us had those VidPro cards and stuff behind glass. Right. And I actually remember in the case of the Neo Geo, they actually had the system box and the actual big games in the glass case. Like, I'm sure they only had one of every copy of the game, and if you got it out of the glass case, somebody's like, now I've got to get out of the cage and walk over there.
Yeah.
Oh, what?
I think we only had a place called like Software Etc. or something. It was in the back of a bookstore at the time, and that was the only place I'd ever seen that even sold Neo Geo games. Like our Babbage's, EB, Funko Land, they all just gave up on it because they're like, nobody around here is buying this.
So Software Etc. and Babbage's wound up both being bought by Barnes & Noble and were the same company, and they were very similar to one another. As far as Funko Land goes, they quit carrying them in 1996, which is how I got mine. The month the N64 came out, which was September of 1996, FuncoLand every month would put out a little big newspaper that would have a list of what they had for sale.
Yep.
And when the September newspaper came out, I remember I went there September 1st or whatever, and I looked and I saw, holy you know, God, the Neo Geo is only $90, and all the games are half price, or you know, or like $50 or less.
Oh my God.
So at that time, there were maybe 50 Funko Lands in the Chicago area. So I go home when we had, because not everybody had cell phones back then. In fact, very few people did. And if they did, they were Zach Morris sized and were $34 a minute to use. I got home and I literally dialed every Funko Land until I found ones that had Neo Geo stuff. And I managed to find like 2 in the whole area of like 50 stores that had the system, and a handful that had a couple of games. So then I had to convince, because I was only 15 at the time, an aunt of mine to drive me, you know, 25 plus miles in Chicago traffic to pick a system up and a game. And I managed to do that within a day. And then that's how I got my Neo Geo system.
It makes me feel better to know that you had to work so hard.
Yeah.
So at first I was jealous and pissed off, but now, okay, now I'm like, hey, you know what? He deserves.
You've earned that one, buddy.
You definitely earned that. Yeah, you deserve that. Wow.
So, John, what was the first 16-bit system that you had?
I'll try to tell you guys before my audio goes out. It was the TurboGrafx, and I was fortunate enough to have parents who were divorced and very competitive for my love. So my mom refused to buy me a video game system, right? She thought it was bad. I didn't have an NES, none of that stuff, but I really wanted one. And so one Christmas, my dad says, I'm going to buy you a video game system. Let's go to the store. So we went to the store, and I think I had seen an advertisement, or maybe like a 60-minute special about the fancy new Sega Genesis, right? And they were showing off Buster Douglas and Altered Beast and all that stuff. So I was like, I want that damn Sega Genesis. So we went to the store. I picked the Sega Genesis up off the shelf. We got to the cash register. It rang up at something like $230 or something that was ridiculous for the time, like 1989, 1990, whenever this was. And my dad, he's like, whoa, wait a minute. What about that other console that was on the shelf next to it? And it turned out to be the TurboGrafx. And I was like, sure. I saw an ad for, you know, like Bonk or something. I don't even remember. And I was like, it looks cool to me. So we went back and I got the TurboGrafx, and it was, you know, like $20-30 cheaper. So my dad was all about it. So anyway, I take the TurboGrafx home because I lived with my mom, and I take it home, and she's like, damn it, he got him a video game system. So now it's on, right? Next summer for my birthday, this guy gets a Turbo Express, right?
Damn.
That was pretty sweet. Yeah. From my mom, by the way, because you know, competing, right? And then so I was an addict. I never got the TurboGrafx CD, but the Winter the Turbo Duo for Christmas. So that was pretty awesome.
That's crazy. That's so crazy. Yeah. And a little fun fact too, that I should mention, John and I actually grew up in the same town.
We did.
In central Wisconsin. So when I first finally did get my TurboGrafx 16 system, John and I were both competing over the same video store that had, I think, 16 Turbo games. And we didn't know each other. We didn't realize this. Matter of fact, we just met this last summer. The video store, like in the mid 90s, maybe 93 or 94, started to sell off the TurboGrafx games because no one had ever rented them, and no one, you know, nobody cared about it anymore, and the system was dying. So they were selling their games. And I remember going to Lincoln Video and buying 1 or 2 games, and I got my copy of Bonk's Adventure from them, and I got like Bloody Wolf from them. Then I go home and play them and be like, oh my God, and I save up some more money, and then I go back, and there was like half of the games that were there were now gone. And I'm like, who the fuck is buying Turbo games in Merrill, Wisconsin?
It was me.
It was him.
Yeah, I still have a bunch of games on my shelf in the next room that say Lincoln Video on the inside.
That's so
but I want to go back, just if I can, for just a quick second. I relate to what Esteban was talking about before, when he was talking about going and looking at like EGM or GamePro or something, and just paging through there and just being so annoyed and pissed off that it was like pages after pages of Super Nintendo reviews and like previews, and like, you know, a few less, you know, of Genesis, but still a lot. And then at the very back, there was like you know, it was like gunboat, and you're like, son of a bitch.
Right. And like the one screenshot that looks halfway decent, but it's not even the gameplay.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, it's like, what a piece of garbage.
Well, tied to that, I remember reading many reviews where you'd see like Cosmic Fantasy 2, and you're like, oh my God, this game looks amazing. And it's all cutscene screenshots.
Right. Yeah.
But I do remember them, you know, I think EGM had their import scene section or whatever they called it.
Yeah, and they had PC Engine games there.
They had awesome stuff. Like they showed Snatcher and a bunch of other stuff. I think probably the, you know, Far East of Eden, you know, those games, they showed those, and I was like, man, these look amazing. These are coming to the States? Nope.
Nope. Guy Macchio and
yeah.
Well, another fun thing was I got to go to the early CESs. So I went to the CES, the summer one in 1992, 93, and I think the last one in 94 before E3 took over the convention scene for the summer. And I remember going to TTI's booth, and you would actually see some of the games you're describing, like Tengai Macchio 2. And you're like, oh, awesome, these games are going to come out. And they never did.
Nope.
That would have been so much work to localize something like that.
That game? Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, Dragon Slayer made it over here. Working Designs localized Cosmic Fantasy 2. Yeah. Those games are not as simple to localize as, say, for example, I don't know, Bonk, but they could have very easily come out and should have come out, as that would have given a nice niche appeal to what was essentially being marketed as a niche platform by the time we hit 1992 when the Turbo Duo came out. But they didn't spend their money on that. They're like, nah, let's just publish more shooters. I know, terraforming is adequate. Let's publish that.
It's like Gate of Thunder 2. No. I don't mind terraforming. I think it's a good game, but yeah.
I mean, we could have at least gotten some freaking Castlevania, you know? Like,
that would have been a problem to license. Is the issue there? I think that. By the way, I know Gradius 2 and Snatcher were both at TTI's booth in '93. Right. So I think there was some intent
along
to
with
localize
Macross.
There was a handful of other stuff that was.
Imagine if those three, just those three games. Damn. Ugh.
But it's the cycle of lost potential. So, in any event, moving on from 16-bit stuff, as we're already 37 minutes into the show, let's talk a little bit about Dragon Quest 11. Now, I know John's been playing it, I've been playing it, and a lot of you have experience with the Dragon Quest series. I don't know if Tweak's been playing it.
I had Dragon Quest 11 last year. I bought the Japanese version when it came out.
Nice. So now, did you play through that?
I finished it, yeah.
Nice, dude.
I really like it. Like, if it's Dragon Quest, I'll buy it. I'm a sucker like that.
So do you have knowledge of Japanese language then? Are you able to read and speak it? Oh, very nice. That's awesome. You liked it, but...
Yeah, no, I mean, I was a big fan. I just, my problem is I really prefer the classic Dragon Quest, like I visit the first couple on the Famicom frequently.
That's super cool. So
that's just it's hard to compare the two because there's so long between the games. They're different games, even though they're in the same series.
Right, but hasn't the Dragon Quest series kind of stayed in its own structure? Like, it's not like a huge giant Final Fantasy games, which are kind of like either MMOs or hack and slash type games now, whereas they used to be turn-based.
All over the map.
It's like, what kind of game is it this time? We don't know. It's going to be like Knights of the Old Republic. It'll be like hack and slash. Who knows? But like Dragon Quest still is turn-based, right? Isn't it still like the same?
It is, but there are some differences. And one of the first things you mentioned is MMOs. Dragon Quest X actually was an MMO, and that's the one that didn't come out in the US.
It was honestly not very good. I got that one when I pre-ordered the Wii U console. It was like a pack-in game with that.
For real?
It came with like a month free of Dragon Quest X, and I never bothered to re-up that subscription at all. That was terrible.
And it didn't come out here in the US for a whole lot of reasons, partly because they would have had to build a whole online infrastructure for it, but they've made changes to how the series works. Another thing is tied to it being turn-based. Yes, it's turn-based, but random battles or something that's kind of not as much of a thing in Dragon Quest XI. You still run into those when you're in the water, but if you're on land, you can see enemies, you can intentionally initiate encounters, and you've been able to do that since Dragon Quest IX. Speaking of Dragon Quest IX, they added multiplayer, and the multiplayer in Dragon Quest IX allowed you to have a friend who was using a DS join in your game, and they could help you fight things along with trade items. There was a whole map trading system that was going on with Dragon Quest IX. So there have been a lot of innovations that have been made to the series, but they're not the kinds that you would see in a Final Fantasy game where it's, hey, we have a new magic system, or hey, we got rid of turn-based encounters. Now you just stab shit.
Right. Damn. That's so crazy. And these innovations came out pretty much right around the time where Square and Enix merged. Is this the idea?
They came somewhat after that. I mean, the thing, there's a couple things that's worth noting about Square and Enix merger. For all intents and purposes, Enix bought Square, and I could go into a long explanation of that, but it's kind of off topic, relatively speaking. But functionally speaking, the Dragon Quest games aren't developed internally by Enix. Dragon Quest VIII was developed by Level 5. Dragon Quest IX was developed by Level 5. And there's a core group of Dragon Quest creators that more or less manage the series. Enix isn't a company that had an internal development team at any given time. They would basically outsource projects and then own IPs. So the Dragon Quest series has always been something that was kind of offloaded to an outside developer. Whereas Square kept huge internal teams of developers and tried to keep consistency with that. So there's a bit of a different design structure there, which is bizarrely enough partly why Dragon Quest has remained more similar, despite the fact that it's been developed by many different groups over a long period of time. And I can see John is looking right at the camera and has something to say.
No, I'm good. I'm sitting here being educated.
Same here. Same here.
No, I agree with you. So Akira Toriyama, the dude behind Dragon Ball, right? He's the guy who does the artwork, right? So he's one of the core core dudes. Who else we talking about?
Oh, well, we're talking about Yuji Horii, who's the scenario writer and story writer, and then Koichi Sugiyama, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, who has a lot of interesting backstory about Koji Sugiyama, if you're not familiar with him, but he's the composer of the Dragon Quest series, and he's about 90 years old and believes all sorts of interesting things about World War II, if you ever look him up.
Interesting is a word that you can use. Yeah. Huh.
On an interesting side note, how Koichi Sugiyama wound up being brought into Dragon Quest before the game was developed is kind of an interesting story. So Yuji Horii developed some sort of a detective game for PC-98 and MSX computers. And Koichi Sugiyama had done, I believe, Japanese movies and things, and was a very famous composer even 30 years ago when he was only like 60 or something, before the first Dragon Quest came out. But apparently the way Enix got in touch with him was this. One day they were looking through the registration cards that come in for games, and they see one that says Koichi Sugiyama. So imagine like someone gets one that says John Williams or something, right? And they just happen to write him back and say like, hey, are you the famous movie composer Koichi Sugiyama? And he says, yes, I am. And that's how they wound up recruiting him to do the music for the Dragon Quest.
That's awesome. Those stupid registration
cards.
I can't even.
The other thing is, you mentioned Akira Toriyama. He actually did the Dragon Quest art before Dragon Ball had started, but after he had done a manga called Dr. Slump, which was fairly popular. And he was friends with Yuji Horii from doing, I guess it's Shonen Jump manga that Yuji Horii was writing. And from that, those two collaborated on the Dragon Quest character art. And then a few months after Dragon Quest 1 came out, this thing called Dragon Ball came out, and it took off.
That's so crazy.
And now Akira Toriyama is arguably the most famous manga artist since Osamu Tezuka.
Dude, you are a font of
information. Astro Boy? Who's that, dude?
Yes, he's Astro Boy.
Yeah,
he's Princess Knight. He's Blackjack. He's what's the lion? Kimba the White Lion. He's all sorts of other stuff. Osamu Tezuka.
Right.
So I think between all of us, Esteban, have you played the new Dragon Quest game?
No, come on.
Goodness.
Have you
no.
played a Dragon Quest game?
Just so you know my policy, I am such a dinosaur. I still consider, oh my God, I don't even want to date myself. PS3 is like a super modern system. I do not have that. That's too modern. PS2 is like the most modern console I have. Oh, I mean, I have Wii for the kids, and I play that myself too, but I don't count that. That's like an anomaly. So, and I might even get the new Switch, but it's really for the kids. Just like I bought my daughter, what is it, Nintendo DS and 3DS. I bought those for her. I don't really bug her or try to steal it from her. I would have like 10 years ago, but I'm so busy now. So, yeah, it's sad. So, I mean, I'm jealous. I mean, I want to play some modern games. I can only really do it when I see my brother or visit friends who happen to have a modern console. I don't have any modern consoles.
And unfortunately, you use a Macintosh, so you can't play the Steam version.
Correct. They might have some horrible. They might have some horrible emulation of some stuff, but I don't know what's available. Yeah.
Fruit Cup, you have never played a Dragon Quest game. Oh, he's on mute. He's on mute.
I have not.
Wait, not even old school NES.
No.
Oh my God.
So what would be
Oh well, then you. Oh my gosh.
what would be considered a good Dragon Quest knockoff that you've played? Maybe a game that's similar to the Dragon Warrior series. Do you like any turn-based RPGs?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I played like Final Fantasy on the NES and was it Final Fantasy 3 on the SNES. I mean, I like turn-based RPGs. I just never got around to playing Dragon Quest. I think it was just like my friends back then. We just weren't big. I wasn't a big RPG guy as I was growing up. I found RTS games more exciting personally.
Sure, yeah.
At the time,
in a movie trailer-esque way, Dan is going to recommend you a Dragon Quest game to play right now, live on the podcast.
So, if you've got a mobile phone or a Nintendo DS, you can get Dragon Quest V. Dragon Quest V is a fantastic game, as John is holding it up right there, and is one of my favorite games in not just the Dragon Quest series, not just games made by Square or Enix or Square Enix, but one of my favorite games ever made. And it's a fantastic traditional RPG that takes a lot of the cliches, a lot of the tropes that Japanese RPGs typically have, and it does the exact opposite of what you might think with it. You might say it subverts your expectations, but unlike a certain Star Wars movie, it doesn't do it in a bullshit, terrible way. It does it in creative and interesting ways. And that, my friends, makes for a satisfying gaming experience and one of the best games ever made. Dragon Quest V, available on Android, iOS, and Nintendo DS in English.
I've never. Okay, guess what? I've never played that, and I have no time for like turn-based RPGs in general for years now. But I actually now am intrigued by that.
I'm sold. I'm gonna have to buy it after I get off this call.
Esteban, don't you have like a really long commute that you can do this on?
Yes, but there's I don't know. I have just at some point, but I don't know when exactly. I just said I have no time for that, and I just cut out entire genres, and it's simplified my life. And maybe it's something I've done so I don't lust or feel like I'm missing out on something. So I've just cut off entire genres, and I'm like, I just don't have time for that, and so be it.
Well, one benefit to playing a game like Dragon Quest V is the fact that you can play it on a handheld device or a mobile phone.
Yeah.
So you can play it anywhere while you're on the bus, while you're on the toilet.
I have 1 billion hours of commuting every week, so it's a good point. It's something you should do.
It's absolutely, and it's the kind of thing where literally I would go into LA Fitness some years ago, and being a complete nerd, I would be holding out a Nintendo DS, playing Dragon Quest VI while on a goddamn treadmill as people are staring. But I didn't care.
Oh, that's great. Here's the thing. I guess I played a bunch of games back in the day that had so much grinding and stuff, and I said, I think that was like one of the issues.
The really old ones in that series are very grind heavy.
Yeah.
Like very grind heavy.
The other interesting thing about the way the Dragon Quest games, at least the modern ones, work is that you can do lots of grinding to make the game really easy, or you can find all sorts of tricks and little hacks to get around it. You can learn how to game the casinos so that you get super high level equipment way earlier in the game and are able to just decimate enemies from that point on. Another thing, we brought up Dragon Quest IX having like downloadable maps and being able to trade things with people. There was hundreds of hours of post-game content in this game to a point where there was actually an online shop that was functioning, not where you would buy things with real money, but where you would buy things with in-game gold. And Nintendo was hosting the Dragon Quest IX store. And if you got to a certain point in the game, you could actually buy like the best possible equipment from earlier Dragon Quest games. As bizarre as that would sound, and you could kind of hack your way around having to grind for things. And the more you learn about how to strategize your battles and how things work, you can actually save a whole lot of time. Like I've looked at where people are at in Dragon Quest XI, the latest game to be released in the US, and where I'm at in the game, and I'm seeing people are like 7 levels higher than I am in screenshots where I'm in a walkthrough or something along those lines. And I'm like, these people are probably fucking put 10 more hours into the game than I have. But I spent time in the casino, and now I'm way more powerful than they are, and I've saved a lot of time. So,
Dan, is it safe to say that you are king of casino?
I am king of casino. And the thing about the Dragon Quest casinos I should probably explain is that they are incredibly addictive, and you're not really risking too much. Because if you lose all your money at the casino, don't save. Turn the system off, turn the thing back on, and gamble again until you have more of your casino tokens. And then you can use those to buy really, really high-level shit. And it's as bizarre as it sounds, it actually saves you huge amounts of time because you can get this stuff fairly early on in the game. And I don't want to go on and on and on and on into exposition about Dragon Quest strategy, but the games are designed so well, especially from a battle system standpoint, that people are used to playing a Final Fantasy game where they're just like attack, 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 maybe heal. And if I can't kill the enemy, I know I need to level up more. With Dragon Quest, there's all sorts of status items, there's all sorts of status effects, there's all sorts of ways you can do things, just spreading out the characters you have on the field to be able to avoid damage or hide or do other things, and then, have somebody in the back casting spells at a distance. There are all sorts of strategies you can use within battle to kill things you won't be able to kill with the retarded Final Fantasy battle system that so many people are used to playing. And I think that's an added level of depth, especially to the newer Dragon Quest games.
Wow.
So now that we're getting near to the end here, Dragon Quest XI, I'm really curious now, between John and Dan and even Connor, what are your guys' overall thoughts on the game? Like, where does it stand in the entirety of this series of 11 games? Like, is it the best ever? Is it somewhere in the middle? Is it just a great experience that everyone should try? What are your thoughts? And we'll start with you, Connor.
Honestly, I'd put it more towards the top. I wouldn't say it's the top because, I've got, I know you love my nostalgia blinders bit, but, those old ones I look at, and it's hard to look at them with fresh eyes like you would these other ones because I put so much time into them over the years. But they do keep making changes to the series, and they do keep making good changes to the series. And I think that's nice compared to the stuff you see from, RPG series like Final Fantasy, where you get these changes and it's like, what the hell are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
So I like seeing new takes on Dragon Quest, and that they brought it into 3D, and then they tried it with the Dragon Quest Heroes series too, and all of those were just good to me. They were just fun.
I even like Dragon Quest Swords, so I'm one of the weirdos. I think that's a fun game too. Dan's like, oh my god. How about you, John? Your first what, 13 hours into it now?
Yeah, give or take. I love it. What I love about Dragon Quest is, Dan did a good job of kind of talking about how the game has evolved, or the games have evolved over the years and over the series. But when you play it, it still feels like a Dragon Quest game. Like, it's very familiar. no matter what Dragon Quest game you play, it feels familiar. I went back and I've been playing the first one on my phone, just for fun, because I've been in a Dragon Quest kind of mood. And there's so many things that even from that early stage have carried through to Dragon Quest 11 in this giant 3D world and everything. And I love, so anyway, I'm loving 11. To me, it feels like an extension of 8, which I loved a lot, because 8 had this big 3D world and it was very immersive and very colorful. Level 5 did an awesome job with it, and this feels like that, but even way better. I can't really say how it ranks in the series, because I'm only, a sixth of the way through it, if that. But so far, I'm loving it. It's great.
So my thoughts are probably fairly similar to John's. I think it's most similar to 8 in terms of how the game fits in quality-wise, and 8 is towards the top of my favorite games. With that said, I won't be able to make a final declaration until I finished it. I finished all of the Dragon Quest games in the main series except for 7. I've played both the PlayStation and the 3DS remake of 7, and that game is 120 hours main quest minimum. The game is absolutely enormous, and I've still never gotten around to finishing it. I'll always get to a point where I get stuck somewhere and will take a week or two off and forget where I was. And that's it. Yep, that's Dragon Quest 7, and it's also on the PlayStation in a completely different form as well. With that said, with 11, the one thing I will say that's better about 11 than 8 is I think the story seems to be a little bit better paced. I think it's a little bit more of a concise game. You don't have the random encounters on the map, but I think the characters aren't quite as well developed as the ones that were in 8, which makes it gives it a little bit less charm and charisma in that regard, but it's still an absolutely charming and wonderful game. Again, I can't draw any sort of a final conclusion, but thus far I'm absolutely really enjoying it, and it continues all of the traditions of a Dragon Quest game, which is why they feel so familiar. It's that Koichi Sugiyama music, that Akira Toriyama art, and the charming and fun little fairy tale-like scenarios as you go from town to town and location to location that Yuji Ori is the master of crafting, just like he did for Chrono Trigger.
That's awesome. So, okay, Esteban, what would you say is your favorite turn-based role-playing game that you've played?
I can't. Yeah, it's dead to me, that genre. But I will say this. No, I mean, I don't know. I really can't even say. It's like all my stuff is so steeped in the past. I haven't actually played through a game in. Jeez, it's got to be like.
You can
10.
say Double Dungeons. You can say Double Dungeons.
Yeah, no, but it's like 10, 12 years since I've yeah.
Hearing this just hurts me on such a personal level.
I make that disclaimer all the time that turn-based RPGs is just not. Just like fighting games. I just don't have any patience for. It's like Neo Geo to me is not about fighting games, which is like sacrilege. But
there's a great they do shoot 'em ups really well on the Neo Geo, and
I know. I love all
sports games.
I will
play games on the Neo are just
for turn-based RPGs at this point. This is so sad.
The Neo sports games are great because it's sports games for people who don't normally even like these sports will enjoy these games, and they did such a good job with them. It's like, wow, you made golf kind of fun.
There was some
they're arcade. For example, I once watched an American playing soccer.
Talk about like Football Frenzy.
Frenzy is good, yeah.
Something like that. It was like it's reduced. It wasn't even the full game. It was just fantastic. Oh,
it was good. Baseball Stars also on the Neo.
Oh, I love Baseball
Stars
on NES.
Mm-hmm.
Not Neo Geo. I love the NES and customizing the teams, having seasons. So fantastic.
Making your own characters, everything. Yeah, that was really well done. Dang. Well, you'll have to find a.
I will have to find something, but it's just
to get to it. Just do Cosmic Fantasy. Do Dragon Slayer. One of those two.
I just feel like one criticism, which I think is true, the encounter rate and the randomness. I can see going back to those games possibly being frustrated. Something that didn't bother me so much, but now being like, ugh, So that's my big concern. Cosmic Fantasy 2 really suffers from that. I know.
Yeah.
I tried to downplay it, but when I went back and played it like 10 years ago, I was like, oh, this is kind of.
It's rough.
Yeah,
it really is.
Especially when you have limited time.
Yep.
nowadays too. And it's like, oh, all these, time wasting battles and.
Yep.
Especially when your system takes a long time to load. I always remember Cosmic Fantasy 2, you turn the game on, you'd get like a title screen, and then 4 minutes later, Van would run out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man, because I remember playing Castlevania 2 on the freaking Famicom disk system that had like 45-second load times between
Oh my
every
god,
area.
I didn't even know it was that bad.
Yeah, oh, it's terrible. It's like Neo Geo CD bad.
Nice. Mr. Ryan, Fruit Cup 780 Racer. What would you say is your favorite turn-based RPG?
I actually liked Final Fantasy X. I think that's a lot of nostalgia talking. Because
I think it's
like
a good
my
game
first
too. I actually would say it's
PS2. Yeah, so I mean, I really liked Final Fantasy X. I have a friend right now that would probably come and stab me hearing me say that. But
stab.
yeah. The other really good turn-based RPG would probably be a newer one, Undertale. I really liked Undertale.
Yeah, that's a really unique game. I like that one. It's on Steam, and I think it just came out on like Switch or something crazy, right?
It's on PS4 and Vita as well.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's
Well,
on a bunch
PS4.
of systems.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's awesome. Very cool. Very, very cool. We are reaching the end here. They're going to kick us off the air, guys. So why don't we just have our last statements by each of you guys, and then we'll sign off for the evening this week on the whatever this show's called, Game Huggers, Game Hump. Why don't we start the Game Dump? We're going to start on the left side. Ryan, what is your send off? What is your final word for the week on the Game Huggers podcast? And you're on mute still, so you have to push a button before you say something.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'll definitely have to check out Dragon Quest V, and had a great time at LinCon, and I hope to see you guys next week.
Hell yeah, dude. Connor, how about you?
Esteban, play the freaking Dragon Quest game.
Number 5.
Play
right?
number 5.
I have to. I will.
Which is the easiest and the quickest to play through on a bus? 1?
Yes.
Yeah. 1 is probably the fastest to play it through, but 1 is very cumbersome nowadays to go back to as well. It's got a lot of things that's, were cool when they tried to do it new in 1986, 1987, but didn't exactly age the best.
And I'm okay with that. And I revisited that at some point in the late 90s. So, but I think 5 is like new to me, so that's a little more appealing. So
there you go.
You know what, Esteban? If I was going to recommend one for you, it might be number 4.
Okay.
Simply because it's broken up into little vignettes.
Right.
So you play. There are 4 characters. You play through each of their chapters, and then they all come together with the hero, and then there's one big finale.
Yep. And I noticed you're holding up the DS. Is that so? I can get that on DS.
But it is also on mobile.
Gotcha.
And from what I understand, it's got features on mobile that it doesn't have on the DS, the party chat and things like that. So.
Right.
Interesting. It also is on the original NES as well.
Yes.
Dan, how about your final words?
Well, my final words are Dragon Quest IV is also an excellent choice. And one other thing I didn't mention that gives those games a heck of a lot of charm is accents. And in Dragon Quest IV, and I think both John and Connor will know exactly what I'm talking about, different parts of the Dragon Quest world have different accents. So you'll get to an area, where everyone's got a Scottish accent. Or everyone sounds very German, yeah. And it's actually written that way phonetically when you get to these places that gives so much more personality and character to everything.
That's awesome. Esteban?
Yeah, so one I'll say, I can't promise, but this is what I'll say. In the next 6 months, because I got to give myself a realistic timeline, in the next 6 months, I will absolutely check out Dragon Quest 4 and 5. I don't know on what platform, but I'm going to check it out. But in addition to that, and this is kind of like going beyond the Dragon Quest stuff, it turns out I'm actually jealous of the folks who were late to the 16-bit generation, because while my brothers and I wanted to be on the cutting edge stuff, there were so many fantastic NES games that came out later. And I knew about some of them because my friend still had an NES, but I wish there was so many fantastic games. I wish I had a chance back in the day to really like enjoy them. And I was getting games and playing games for the 16-bit systems that frankly weren't as good, but they seemed
They look
so
pretty.
yeah,
All
they
that parallax.
seemed so
All that
amazing.
parallax.
But deep down, the games themselves were not as amazing. So I feel like we were cheated a little bit because we had to sell the NES in order to fund, the new system. So I was like, what a damn shame.
Mhm.
On that sad note.
But back then it was like you only got a certain number of games per year too.
Oh
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
You didn't have the
Handful at
money
most, if you're lucky.
now, so it's like if you made a bad choice, you were paying for it for at least 6 months.
That's why you went to Blockbuster.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I never really rented too much from Blockbuster, but the mom and pop stores, I did.
Lincoln Video.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. King Drool.
All right, so I've got a few things I want to say before I go, if that's all right.
Oh dear God.
No, it's fine. It's fine. If you're lucky, my mic will cut out again. So first of all, Ryan 780 over there. I'm going to do this Brady Bunch style. So Ryan over there, just want to say we got to get a beer soon. Next up, Tweak and Dan. Good to see you guys.
Likewise.
Excellent to see you guys. Esteban, I've been your biggest fan for going on a decade now. This is the first.
Crazy.
This is the first time I've talked to you, kind of somewhat in person.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely insane. So
yeah, and then finally, Josh. Other side.
I was wondering why you were turning the shirt around. I was like, "What is this?"
Hatter's gonna hat. Nice.
And then Bugger's gonna hug.
Yeah,
right.
It's good.
So thanks for allowing me to play. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Hattress, I feel that if we ever do all, and we should at some point in life before we die, all meet up, we're gonna have to play Hattress.
It's gotta happen.
Dude, I can't play Hattress if Necro's not there. So
I
he
know.
Has to be there.
We're gonna have to stalk him, find out where he lives, and play Hattress.
I just know he lives by a lot of corn. So
I know. Allegedly, who knows?
Allegedly.
He's probably Canadian. I don't really know.
Very well could be. I guess the last thing I wanted to talk about, the last thing I want to mention is I never really did get into the Dragon Quest games past 1 on the NES when I was in the 8-bit era. I did the same thing where I moved on to like Super Nintendo and TurboGrafx fairly early on. Like by 92, I had a Super Nintendo. By 94, I had a Turbo. So I had left the NES high and dry by that point. And, Dragon Warrior 2, 3, and 4, I missed out on most of those games. But one game that I fell in love with that was my very favorite RPG on the regular NES was Ultima Quest of the Avatar. And I think that is in my opinion, a better game than all of the Dragon Warrior games on the NES. So that's just my crazy, weird moment of thing that I wanted to say. So I love it. I think the music's awesome. I think the battles are great. It's got a lot of strategy, they're not real-time strategy, but like strategy in the battles that weren't really found in the Dragon Quest series. So that's just my opinion. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening and watching this week's episode of the Game Huggers podcast. I am Joshua. You can follow me on the Twitterverse at _Joshua Turbo. Don't forget the underscore, as it is the most important underscore in all of the internet. Anyway, thank you guys so much. You can always check us out at facebook.com/gamehuggers, and you can always check us out on Podomatic, TuneIn, and iTunes for all of your game hugging needs. So thank you guys so much. We'll see you again in a week. Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Central Time. Bye.
Go bye-bye. Yeah.
Every time. It's beautiful.